she is offering everything that she has to make sure that his character is not questioned. I see it as a desperate gesture to reach out to the man, to make him realize that she is worth more than he thinks of her. Hello and welcome back to Nibble Pop. We are studying Mrichakatika by Shudraka together, and we have already completed the first two acts. Today in this video, I'm going to take up the text of the third act, and the name of this act is The Hole in the Wall. We will see new characters, and we will also see how the story progresses, what happens in the act. We will not definitely be reading all the lines in the act, but I promise you I will not skip any important line. And if you watch this video till the end, you will be able to understand the plot progression and will be able to understand what happens eventually in the act. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, do so that you get notified every time a new video comes up. This is Monami Mukherjee. Welcome once again. If we consider the story of Mrichakatika as only the love story of Charudatta and Vasantasena, then many of the events or many of the acts appear to be superfluous. That means not necessary to the main plot. But this is the very quality of the comic sense of Shudraka, which is also an important feature of the Prakarana style. You see a lot of digressive subplots and meet many characters who do not directly affect the plot in any way, but surely their actions have an effect on the way we look at the characters, the way the story progresses. So this act, the third act, The Hole in the Wall, this will give us the character of Sarvilaka, and we will see how this character is important so far as the main story of Charudatta Vasantasena is concerned. The act begins with Vardhamanaka. Vardhamanaka is the servant of Charudatta, and if you remember what happened in the previous acts, you would know that the casket of jewels was the responsibility of Charudatta. Vasantasena gave him her casket of jewels, her box of jewels, and asked him to keep them safe. And it was decided that Moitro and Vardhamanaka, they will be the chief custodians, the guardians of those jewels. So Vardhamanaka, the servant at Charudatta's house, his words are here. A master kindly and benevolent, his servants love, however poor he be. We are given this repeated information about Charudatta's poverty, that Charudatta is poor, and at the same time, this idea that Charudatta is a kind man, benevolent man. This is also repeatedly given to us. Here also we see the same thing, that his servant is praising Charudatta. The purse proud, with a will on harshness bent. So there are people who have a lot of money. They are proud of their wealth and they are very harsh to their servants, pays service in the coin of cruelty. Those people are cruel to their dependents, to their servants. But Charudatta, although he is not a rich man now, he is very kind and benevolent. So we see that characters like Vardhamana, Maitreya, they praise Charudatta, although Charudatta is not in a position to give them payments even probably. So this praise is an honest one. Okay, you don't get paid for praises like this. And then Vardhamanaka gives us an information that Charudatta has gone to a concert with Moitreya. It is past midnight and still he does not come. I think I will go into the outer hall and take a nap. So he goes off to take a nap. And then we see Charudatta and Moitreya enter. And Charudatta is in a very good mood because he loves music and he really enjoyed the concert. And he praises the singer, how beautifully Rabila sang. The lute is indeed a pearl not of the ocean. So he is a very poetic person. We know that, right? He's a romantic person, and for him, music is like a soothing balm. He really enjoys music right now. And he says, gently the anxious lover's heart befriending. So when somebody is in love, they're very anxious, they're very nervous, they don't uh, feel like, enjoying themselves because their beloved is away from them. It is during those times that music provides a certain kind of relief. So Charudatta is talking about this, that music in this case is befriending lover's heart, becoming a friend to the lovers, consoling when true lovers may not meet. So, when lovers are away from each other, music offers them consolation. To love lorn souls, the dearest comfort sending, it adds to sweetest love, it's more of sweet. So, this kind of reminds me of Orsino's speech in the very beginning of Twelfth Night. In semester 2 you will have that play by Shakespeare, and Orsino begins like this, if music be the food of love, play on. And there he praises music as something which provides a kind of soothing comfort to a lover's heart. So music has always been associated with love. Moitru is a prosaic person. He doesn't have that kind of sentiment. And he says, well, then let's go into the house. But how wonderfully Master Rabhila sang. Charudatta is kind of brooding on the whole thing that, okay, that was a beautiful moment we had there. Moitru had enough. He says, there are just two things that always make me laugh. One is a woman talking Sanskrit, and the other is a man who tries to sing soft and low. Now, usually women were not educated. That was society's fault, but Moitreya chooses to laugh at women who try to speak in Sanskrit because they don't get the pronunciation correct. And that causes laughter, and the kind of men who sing in a low voice. So for Moitreya, we see that he might be a good person because he loves Charudatta, and Charudatta is our hero. So anybody who loves our hero is somebody whom we like. But other than this, Moitreya has these very typical conservative values and set ideas about women, about how a man should behave. And he's just being a very patriarchal person here. His views are very stock patriarchal views that women cannot speak in Sanskrit because Sanskrit is the language of the educated people. And he goes on to describe a woman who tries to speak in Sanskrit, saying she is like a heifer. Heifer is a cow, with a new rope through her nose. So the language is like a hindrance. You put something. The cows, they have this rope through their nose so that they are attached to their carts, and that is something very unnatural, isn't it? All you hear is soo, soo, soo. And when a man tries to sing soft and low, he reminds me of an old priest muttering texts while the flowers in his chaplet dry up. No, I don't like it. So he is pretty straightforward that he was pretty bored in the concert and didn't enjoy it at all. Charudatta wants to again kind of convince his friend that no, it was a great concert. My friend Master Rabila sang most wonderfully this evening, and still you are not satisfied. The notes of love, peace, sweetness could I trace, the note that thrills, the note of passion too, the note of woman's loveliness and grace. Ah, my poor words had nothing, nothing new, but as the notes in sweetest cadence rang, I thought it was my hidden love who sang. Notes means the musical sounds that are uttered by the singer. So the notes, the music, that really made Charudatta feel as if his love was singing to him. So we are really struck by this sharp contrast between the two characters, Charudatta and Moitreyo. Maybe opposites attract, so these two have stuck together somehow through thick and thin. But Charudatta is completely a different person than what Moitreyo is, and we will see how they behave in future too. Charudatta is describing the night again in a very poetic manner. Just skip a few lines here. The moon gives place to darkness as she dips behind the western mountain, and the tips of her uplifted horns alone appear. So the crescent moon is imagined to have these horns, and this whole image is beautifully and poetically drawn by Charudatta here. After this, we see Vardhamanaka, the servant whom we have already met in the very beginning of the act. He comes and he greets them. There's a little bit of conversation going on, after which he hands over the casket because that was his responsibility while Moitreyo and Charudatta they were away. He hands them over to Moitreyo. Moitreyo receives them and he says that the thing is here still. Isn't there a single thief in Ujjaini to steal the wretch that robs me of my sleep? So, what is robbing Moitreyo of his sleep? The jewel casket. Because if you have a very huge responsibility, you have to guard something, then of course you can't sleep well. So he says that, oh, there is no thief in this city who can take this box away, which is stealing my sleep. So it's basically he wants to just, it doesn't mean it seriously, of course. Listen, I'm going to take it into the inner court. So he takes it inside the house. And Charudatta, Moitreyo, they decide to go to sleep. Now, while they are sleeping, Sharvilaka enters. Who is this Sharvilaka? He is a thief. And not just an ordinary thief. He is in love with the girl Madanika, who was with Vasantasena in Act 2. We have met Madanika. So this is Madanika's lover. Now, we will have a series of monologues, soliloquies you can say, where Sharvilaka is talking us through the process of stealing, how he has chosen this house, how he's going to enter the house, what are the methods he's going to use. And through these words, we realize that this is like a true artist. He doesn't believe in bombing like a robber or dacoit. He actually comes like a sly thief. I made an entrance for my body's round. So he has made a hole so that he can enter just like rats do. By force of art and arms, a path to deeds. What deed? The deed of stealing. And he has made this hole by using his art, his knowledge, his technique, and his arms, that is his strength. I skinned my sides by crawling on the ground. Now he has made this hole in the ground and he's crawling through that. So of course his skin is getting kind of scrubbed off and by the rough ground. Like a snake that sloughs the skin no longer sound. So we know the process in which the snakes, they get rid of their old skin. So he feels like he's also getting rid of his old skin by dragging himself through the ground. And now I go where my profession leads. Usually professions refer to the jobs you do, but since he is a thief, his profession is to steal and he's going towards that. And then he goes on to say, I made a breach in the orchard wall and entered. So he has cut through the garden wall, the outside, the boundary wall of Charudatta's house and entered. And now I must force my way into the inner court as well. So there was this inner court, that is the Andar Mahal, you can say, where he decides to enter because usually you keep belongings there, the valuables there, so he decides to enter there. And then he makes a very fine analogy, comparison. This antique path was trod by Drona's son. Trod is the past tense of tread, which is to walk. So this was a path that was taken by Drona's son who slew the sleeping unsuspecting kings. Now, what is this reference about? The 18 days of fierce war, the war of Kurukshetra. During the war, we had seen that Dronacharya, he was slain, and it was kind of an act of treachery because Yudhishthir lied to him that his son was dead, and he felt that his world was collapsing. He kind of stopped fighting, and at that moment Rishtadumna came and he beheaded Drona. So that was the story. So obviously Drona's son was not dead then. He was very angry and he wanted revenge. But now that the possibility of revenge on direct combat, facing the army, that was over because the war was over. So what he did, he slyly entered the tents of the Pandavas, and he thought that the five bodies lying asleep in front of him, they belonged to the Pandavas. Okay. And he beheaded them, he killed them. Then he saw that they were the children of the Pandavas, and that was bad because now this whole Kuru family was in danger because nobody was there to carry the mantle and become the next king. So this event is supposed to be, it is considered to be one of the most shameful events in the Mahabharata. And Ashwatthama was really a cursed man after this, almost carried the curse like Cain did. Cain from the Bible was the first murderer. Sarvalaka is referring to that act of Ashwatthama, saying that I am doing a similar thing here. I am also breaching the trust of a household. I am breaking into a house to steal. But of course, he is not going to murder anybody. And we can definitely not compare a thief to a murderer here. But it shows that he is aware of the fact that he is committing a crime. And then he feels the wall because he has to make a hole to enter the inner courtyard. Here is a spot weakened by constant sun and sprinkling and eaten by saltpeter rot. So he identifies a particular spot in the wall which is a weak one and can be compromised. So he wants to break into that, but there are various techniques he talks about, and that's very interesting. Here is a pile of dirt thrown up by a mouse. Then he notices that there is some small little pile of dust, which shows that there are weak spots here. And he feels that this is like the god of thieves is blessing him in a way. Now, heaven be praised, my venture prospers. Venture means my undertaking. I'm going to do a job, that is my venture. Now, first of all, how shall I make the breach? And he is talking to himself. We, the audience, we can hear him. Nobody else can hear him. He is practically alone on the stage, and this is therefore a soliloquy. He gives us different methods of making a hole in a wall and what are the different kind of methods, and he gives the premises too. It is often seen that day-to-day activities are often written down in scriptures of some sorts, and stealing is definitely not one of them, but he says that there is a book where they study all this. Anyway, he enters that inner courtyard, and then he says he has to measure to make the precise cuts of entry. Alas, I have forgotten my measuring line. He brings a measuring line, a tape with which he makes the measurements so that he can have the perfect hole according to his body size. But he has forgotten to bring that. Aha, this sacred cord shall be my measuring line. He takes hold of the sacred cord which the Brahmins they wear during any rituals, or in general Brahmins wear it all the time. And this sacred cord is used particularly for religious purposes, during prayers, and it's like a symbol of your union with God, that kind of a thing. And what is he talking about here? He's going to use that sacred cord as a replacement of the measuring tape Okay, so for a very foul purpose, not any religious purpose at all. So, this sacred cord shall be my measuring line. Yes, the sacred cord is a great blessing to a Brahman. Now, why is a sacred cord a blessing to a Brahman? Because Brahmins use the sacred cord as a passage to divinity, as a prerogative of being of the high class. So, usually, sacred cord with the word sacred in it is associated with any kind of rituals. Brahmins perform rituals wearing the sacred cord. In Bengali, we call it poite. In Sanskrit, it's called upavit. Maybe in many of the languages, it's still called so. But why is the sacred cord useful for Sarvilaka? With this, he measures or he pierces a wall. So, with the sacred cord, Sarvilaka does not perform any religious ritual. He measures the wall before piercing and picks the lock. For picking the lock, he uses that thread at times. When jewels are at stake, it serves as key to bolted door and hall. Maybe he uses that as a thread to somehow unlock doors. As tourniquet for bite of worm and snake. When there's a snake bite, usually you tie that part up so that the poison doesn't flow back to your system, and the uses his sacred thread for that at times. The measuring is done. So this is how Shudraka is making fun of the hypocritical society where the sacred cord, the Brahmanical system, this is not at all in tune with the reality of the times. Like people actually did not feel that respectful about Brahmins, but in their outward gestures, they showed that respect. So, this is the point of comedy. Comedy reflects upon the society it is set on, and by reflecting upon the society, it sometimes magnifies, sometimes brings to our notice things that make us laugh. Sarvilaka's words will make us laugh that, okay, he's using a sacred thread for this. But then we realize that this is the reality. And when we laugh at this reality, we are actually trying to laugh at ourselves. And that is the whole point of comedy. Then he goes on to the room where he's going to steal. But he realizes that, okay, this man is a poor man because Charudatta's house doesn't have anything to steal. He realizes that, okay, this won't be a good thing to steal from this poor man. He is poor in the fullest meaning of the term. Good, I go. So he decides to go away. And then something very strange happens. Moitro, he was sleeping there. Moitro starts talking in his sleep. Now, because he had already told us that he's not having a peaceful sleep because of the jewels. So he's having these dreams perhaps, and he's talking in his sleep. And what is he saying? Look, man, I see something like a hole in the wall. I see something like a thief. You had better take this golden casket. So maybe Mitra is half awake, half asleep, and he doesn't even realize that the hole in the wall is really a hole in the wall. And he is not awake enough to actually understand what is happening around him, but he has this vague idea that somebody has come, and he has this illusion that he has to give that box of jewels for safekeeping because a thief has come. And who is he giving this box to? The thief. Sarvilaka is very surprised. I wonder if the man has discovered that I have entered and is showing off his poverty in order to make fun of me. So Sarvilaka feels that this man is definitely not speaking the truth. Definitely there's no jewel or anything. He's making fun of me. Should I kill him? Or is the poor devil talking in his sleep? He takes a look. But see, this thing wrapped in a ragged bath cloth. Now he notices that box, wrapped in a cloth. Now that I inspect it by the light of my candle, it is in truth a jewel casket. Suppose I take it. But no, it is hardly proper to rob a man of good birth, who is as poor as I am. I go. Somehow, even after seeing that box, Sarvilaka doesn't want to steal it because he sees that this household is a poor household and maybe this is the only thing they have left, and he should not steal a poor man's last bit of wealth. So we see a lot of conscience, a lot of good sense in Sarvilaka. And then Moitra, my friend, by the wishes of cows and Brahmins, I conjure you to take this golden casket. Moitra is so bent upon protecting that jewel box that he, still sleeping, thinks that maybe this is Charudatta in front of him, and he gives him the jewel box saying that you'll have to take this. Now Sarvilaka says, fine, if somebody is like so much insisting on this, let me just think about this. One may not disregard the sacred wish of a cow and the wish of a Brahman. Now cows are very sacred in India, and back then it was even more sacred, like Gomata. So you have mentioned Gomata, you have mentioned Brahman, so okay, I must take it. And then he gives us the reason for his stealing here. He first talks about his father, who was a very honest man. For my father was a man who knew the 4 Vedas, who was very educated, who would not accept a gift. And I, Charvilaka, his son, and a Brahman, I am committing a crime for the sake of that courtesan girl, Madanika. Now I will grant the Brahman's wish. So he is doing this to free Madanika because he wants to marry her, and in order to do that, he must pay the courtesan's fee, which will free her. How cold your fingers are, man. Moitreo feels like this is not probably Charudatta, but he is asleep, so he doesn't know who this is. What carelessness! My fingers are cold from touching water. Well, I will put my hand in my armpit. Anyway, he gets the casket, and then Moitreo says, now I shall sleep as peacefully as a merchant who has sold his wares. So now I'll sleep peacefully. Now that I don't have to worry about these jewels anymore. Sarvilaka says, oh great Brahman, sleep 100 years. Alas, that a Brahman family should thus be plunged in darkness for the sake of Madanika, a courtesan. Or better, I myself am thus plunged in darkness. He has mixed feelings towards his action. He feels that his purpose is not a glorious one. He wants to free Madanika. He loves Madanika. But he thinks that to cause a Brahman family any kind of distress, he was causing them distress by stealing from them, for a courtesan was a bad thing. So deep down, he also makes a value judgment, you see. Nobody is free from this feeling that are courtesans worth it? So Sharvilaka is the closest to the ideal man here, who considers courtesans as equal, or they have rights to household, rights to a proper life. But even he feels in these moments that he is plunging himself into darkness for a courtesan. And then this expression, for a courtesan, this shows that he has this kind of double thoughts in his mind. Well then, I must go to Vasantasena's house to buy Madanika's freedom. After he leaves, Radhanika, the maid servant at Charudatta's house, she realizes that there is a hole in the wall and a thief has entered, and she wakes everybody up. Oh, a thief has cut a hole in the wall of her house and is escaping and all that. She's just screaming. Moitreo was the one to wake up and look at what he is saying. What do you mean, wench? A hole in the wall has cut a thief and has escaped? So, Moitreo's humor is often a verbal one. He uses words, he distorts sentence structures and creates a situation where the audience, they really feel things are very funny, although the situation is not funny at all. Radhanika is very angry. Poor fool, stop your joking, don't you see it? What do you mean, wench? This word wench means a woman of low birth. So you don't address a lady as a wench, you address a common girl as a wench who, serves as a maid or a prostitute or somebody who doesn't have a social status at all. That person is called a wench. So he is addressing Radhanika as a wench, not a respectable term at all. What do you mean, wench? It looks as if a second door had been thrown open. So the hole is so beautifully made, it looks like a second door. Get up, friend Charudatta, get up. A thief has made a hole in the wall of our house and has escaped. Charudatta doesn't believe Moitro. He doesn't believe Moitro half of the times. Yes, yes, a truce to your jests. But it isn't a jest. Look. Where? Why here? Charudatta is now gazing, and the first sentence he utters, what a very remarkable hole. See, when you look at a hole in your house, you actually don't use the word remarkable. But Charudatta is a different kind of a man. He's a romantic guy, and he's not very realistic. So the first thing that happens to him is an admiration for the art of the thief, the handiwork of the thief. The bricks are drawn away below, above. The top is narrow, but the center wide, as if the great house heart has burst with pride. He feels that his house's heart has burst with pride, fearing lest the unworthy share its love. Maybe my house felt that the people living inside this house were unworthy, so my house's heart was burst. The whole looked like that, like a heart shape. To think that science should be expended on a task like this. Now, we had noticed earlier that Sarvilaka was spending quite a lot of time, energy, expertise on digging that hole. It was not just a dumb digging, it was a calculated engineering work. So Charudatta is saying that what a waste of time. Why? Because I'm a poor man. Why should a robber or a thief even try to rob me? Moitreyo says, my friend, this hole must have been made by one of two men. Two kinds of men, like either one of them has made this hole. One, either by a stranger, maybe somebody who didn't even know how poor you are, might have come. Or else for practice by a student of the science of robbery. So it's like a practical class or a project work that a student of the school of robbery was doing. It's like you are getting trained to be a thief, and okay, go to Charudatta's house and make a hole because he doesn't have anything inside his house. It's just for making holes, practice making holes. And Moitreyo is quite funny in saying this. For what man here in Ujjaini does not know how much wealth there is in our house? Everybody knows here that we are poor. Why should anybody come here? Just think of the poor fellow telling his friends, I entered the house of a merchant's son and found nothing. And then Charudatta is also very apologetic and guilty that, okay, a thief came and he, poor dear, didn't get anything. That is the height of generosity. I mean, you're feeling sorry for a thief because you don't have anything. That thief came, went empty-handed, went away empty-handed, and you're feeling sorry for that thief. What kind of person are you? Too generous. Moitreyo says, do you mean to say that you pity the rascally robber? Thinks he, here is a great house. Here is a place to carry off a jewel casket or a gold casket. Now he remembers we had something. Okay. They are so used to the idea of being poor that they had forgotten that they did have something worth stealing. Where is that golden casket? Now he remembers that I had given it to somebody. Look, man, you're always saying Moitreyo is a fool, Moitreyo is no scholar, but I certainly acted wisely in handing over that golden casket to you. He is speaking to Charudatta here. If I hadn't, the son of a slave would have carried it off. A truce to your jests. Now Charudatta is very angry. No, I didn't take any casket from you. So Moitreyo in his sleep thought that he was giving the casket to Charudatta, but he had actually given it to the thief. Just because I am a fool, do you suppose I don't even know the place and time for a jest? So Moitreyo is offended that no, I'm not joking, I'm serious about it. But when did this happen? Why? When I told you that your fingers were cold? It might have been. My friend, I have something pleasant to tell you. Charudatta is not very bothered, see, yet. What? Wasn't it stolen? Yes. What is the pleasant news then? What is good about it then? Charudatta says, I'm telling you something good. What is the pleasant news then? The fact that he did not go away disappointed. So he is feeling that at least I have the consolation that the thief had not gone away without anything. So he was feeling sorry for the thief, Charudatta, such a man. But it was only entrusted to our care. Charudatta is so hopelessly idealistic that he has even forgotten the whole thing that this box of jewels was entrusted by Vasantasena to him. And then when Moitra reminds him, but it was only entrusted to our care, then he says, what? Entrusted to our care? And he swoons. So he's having this attack, okay, faints. Come to yourself, man. Is the fact that a thief stole what was entrusted to you any reason why you should soon? So why are you fainting now? You should act now. Who will believe the truth? Charudatta is now very, very tensed. Suspicion now is sure. This world will show no ruth to the inglorious poor. So he is not that bothered about the fact that Vasantasena will feel he has stolen the jewels. He could not keep them safely. He is more bothered about the people who will think that he had been careless with the jewels. Then Maitreya wants to say that what is the proof we took jewels from her? I intend to deny the whole thing. Who gave anybody anything? Who received anything from anybody? Who was a witness? And shall I tell a falsehood now? Charudatta doesn't want to be a liar. So he cannot deny that Vasantasena had given them those jewels. No, I will beg until I earn the wherewithal my debt to pay. Ignoble falsehood I will spurn. I do not want to be a liar, so I hate telling lies. I will rather beg, earn what I have to compensate for the jewels. Ignoble falsehood I will spurn that steals the character away. So character is very important for him. Radhanika, the maid, she decides to go and inform Charudatta's wife. Wife comes out. And this wife is not even given any name here. The courtesan gets a name, Vasantasena. The maid gets a name, Radhanika. Courtesan's maid gets a name, Madanika. But wife doesn't get a name in Shudraka's play. Why? Because you're a wife. You do not need any additional identity marker. Name is like an identity marker. So you are wife of Charudatta and that should be enough. So this is the way in which married women were treated in society. They neither had property rights nor did they have any kind of emotional rights. Clearly, this woman, the wife of Charudatta, doesn't have any hold on the heart of her husband. Her husband is pining away for Vasantasena, and she comes and look at her reaction. Oh, is it true that my lord is uninjured? And Maitreya too, she is first bothered about the physical injury that the thief might have caused. It is true, mistress, that no, they are not harmed in any way, but the gems which belong to the courtesan have been stolen. Now Charudatta's wife again faints. So everybody is fainting whenever there is some shocking news. Very typical reaction which we see in these Bollywood movies before 80s and 90s. Okay. Oh my good mistress, come to yourself. Girl, how can you say? Now she recovers and says, girl, how can you say that my lord is uninjured? You're saying that my husband is not harmed? He is harmed, but his character is harmed. Better that he were injured in body than in character. For now, the people of Ujjaini will say that my lord committed this crime because of his poverty. Now people will accuse him of stealing. She looks up and sighs. Ah, mighty fate! The destinies of the poor, uncertain as the water drops which fall upon a lotus leaf, seem to thee but playthings. So she is now giving kind of a philosophical speech that just like the water drops which fall on the lotus leaf, it's uncertain whether they can stay or they'll roll off. Similarly, destinies of the poor people, they are uncertain. There remains to me this one necklace, which I brought with me from my mother's house. but my lord would be too proud to accept it. Girl, call Moitreo hither. So she wants to pay back Vasantasena with the only necklace she has. And not just any ordinary necklace. It was a gift from her mother. And usually, when women get married, the jewelry they receive from their parents, that is considered to be their only property. And so it was very unusual for women to part with them. Those were her only tokens of wealth, and she is ready to give it up. For whom? For the person her husband loves. And she does not give the necklace directly to Charudatta. This is again very interesting. She says, just look at this line here, but my lord would be too proud to accept it. So it is as if she needs to request him to take it, and she wants to find a way to convince Charudatta to take this necklace, and she calls Moitreo. Moitreo comes and she offers him the necklace, and of course Moitreo doesn't want to accept it, but Charudatta's wife, she convinces him that he has to take this because it's like she is giving it to Moitreo as a great present. And Moitreo is left in astonishment. What generosity! Till now, he was talking about Charudatta's generosity, but compared to that, this is like you can't even measure this. He is left with so much astonishment. He comes to Charudatta and he gives him the necklace, and Charudatta says, "What is this? Why? That is the reward you get for marrying such a wife." "What? My wife takes pity on me? Alas, now I am poor indeed." Look at his reaction. He feels that it is not customary for a man to take help from a woman. So, again, a little bit of patriarchy there. When fate so robs him of his all, that on her pity he must call. So, I now have to depend on my wife's pity, compassion. The man to woman's state doth fall. See, woman's state, man's state. So, man to woman's state must fall. The woman is the man. So, the main problem here is not that his wife is offering him the necklace to give to the courtesan. He doesn't see the basic problem here. For him, the problem is he has to take help from his wife. Whereas in an ideal household, the man is supposed to provide for the woman. Okay, so there he has more problem with this idea that his wife is helping him. He doesn't have any problem with the idea that his wife has come to know about his affair and knows about this affair. This is very natural and acceptable to everybody in the society, and that is something which really, really bugs me. But then there is some word of wisdom here. But no, I'm not poor, for I have a wife whose love outlasts my wealthy day. She doesn't love me for my wealth. She has loved me even when I'm not wealthy anymore. So her love has outlasted my wealthy day. In thee a friend through good and ill. So he has Moitreo, he has his wife, and truth that naught could take away. Ah, this the poor man lacketh still. So I have such a wonderful wife, such a wonderful friend, but I still lack something. But he doesn't want to tell Vasantasena that the gems were stolen. He says, "Tell her in my name that we have gambled away the golden casket, forgetting that it was not our own, that we trust she will accept this necklace in its place." Which means that it is better to gamble away than somebody stealing your money or your wealth. But usually what we do, suppose somebody gambles someone else's money or wealth, then it is more natural for this person not to inform that. Rather, he says that this thing was stolen. But here we see an opposite thing is happening. The casket is stolen, but if Charudatta says that, see, my casket is stolen, then it would prove that he could not protect. So that is like a charge against his manlyhood, and he doesn't want that. So he says that I have deliberately gambled it away. It is better to gamble it away. Moitra wants to stop him, saying that you must not give away this necklace. The pride of the four seas for the cheap thing that was stolen. Before we had a bite or a drink out of it. So why are you wanting to give away this necklace? Charudatta says, not so, my friend. It's not a cheap thing. That box of jewel was expensive because, not because of its real worth, but because it was entrusted to us. She showed her trust in leaving us her treasure. The price of confidence has no less measure. So he doesn't want to break the trust of Vasantasena, and that's why it's like a compensation. And then he instructs Vardhamanaka to speedily fill up the opening with the self same bricks to fill up that hole. He doesn't want to file a report to the police. He doesn't want to inform the authorities. He doesn't want to look for the thief even. What is more important for him is not to let this incident be a topic of gossip with others. He doesn't want to be defamed that you can't even protect your own household. For the blemish of so great a scandal sticks. And then he advises Moitreyo, you must show your pride by not speaking too despondently. Now the word despondent means having low spirit due to loss of courage. So he wants Moitreyo to look very proud so that Vasantasena does not understand that these jewels were gone in some other way. And Charudatta repeats the verse which he had said before, poor I'm not my friend, for I have a wife whose love outlasts my wealthy day, etc., etc. And this last part of this speech is always, this the poor man lacketh still. And this lack, this desire for Vasantasena is something that eats him from inside, although he has such a lovely wife. Go then, and after performing rites of purification, I will offer my morning prayer. So he will go about his usual business and he sends Moitreyo to Vasantasena. Now, the most disturbing thing about this act is, of course, this relationship between Charudatta and his wife. When the wife and Charudatta, they are on stage, we don't see any direct communication between them. It is as if the wife doesn't have access to the husband, and at the same time, she is offering everything that she has to make sure that her husband is not insulted, his character is not questioned. One might call this her Stri Dharma, the duty of the wife. But I see it as a desperate gesture to reach out to the man with the last resort or the last thing you have, because she doesn't have any access at all. So her gesture of offering her necklace is a generous one, but it is not probably that selfless. I don't call it selfish. What I'm saying is there is an interest in her. What interest? To be able to come to use to Charudatta, to be able to make him realize that she is worth more than he thinks of her. And this is true because Charudatta is a kind of man who is thinking about a woman who is not his wife. And in today's world, I can't even imagine a situation where this can happen, that the wife is offering her wealth to make sure that the husband's honor is maintained in front of that courtesan. She is not questioning his desires. She is not questioning the situation in which Charudatta is in. And this has a kind of a sad overtone, doesn't it? Maybe back then the audience did not realize this as a sad thing at all. And it didn't matter to them. This whole thing was a comedy for them. And they felt that this was natural for a wife to offer her everything to the husband, while the husband could compartmentalize love in this peculiar manner, offering one compartment of his heart to the wife, one compartment to the courtesan, and some to someone else perhaps. So this act kind of raises certain questions which we will keep on thinking about while we read the rest of the play. After this video, we will come to the fourth act, where we will again go to Vasantasena's household and we will see how Maitreya goes through the courtyards to reach Vasantasena, offer the necklace to her, and how she reacts to it. We will also see the relationship between Madanika and Sarvilaka a little bit more. I hope to upload this video very soon and the next one too, because I know that many of you are struggling with your semester 1 NSEM exams, which are probably scheduled in January. I really hope to upload as many acts as I can of Mrichakatika before your exam starts. But in case I fail to upload all of them in time, don't worry. Try to look at this text like I have taught you to look at the text. And I'm sure this language is so simple, you will be able to understand the text on your own. And then if I upload the videos, fine, you can always come and check whether what you have understood matches with my interpretation or not. And if anywhere you feel that you have a different way of looking at the characters, you feel differently about something, please let me know in the comment section. I would love to engage in a discussion with you, because this is what study of literature should be. It should not be me telling you what the meaning is, but let's find out together what meaning we can make of it. So that will be all for today. Thank you so much for being with me. I hope you have not skipped any part of the video. And if you have, you can always go back to it from the beginning. This is Monami Mukherjee signing off. Till my next video on the fourth act, please stay happy, stay subscribed, and stay safe. Bye-bye.